Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Lost Years, Surviving a Mother and Daughter's Worst Nightmare, by Kristina Wanzelak and Constance Curry, narrated by Hilary Huber and Donna Postel. 1. Dying. Kristina. The throbbing in my head is so loud I can barely hear the voices outside the door. I can't remember where I am. The room is small. The walls are yellow or white. I can't tell which. There is a toilet and a sink. The tile floor is hard when my knees slam onto it. The pressure behind my eyes is almost unbearable. My vision is blurry, and I can taste bitter bile at the back of my throat. My stomach starts to turn and heave as breath escapes my mouth. It's like there are holes in my lungs, and hard as I try, I cannot hold air in them. I can feel blood dripping from my nose. My body is turning inside out. I'm confused. I can't fucking think, and I am so cold. The room begins to spin, and I am slipping away. Is this it? Is this what death feels like? I always thought it would come quietly. I always thought I was not afraid to die. I had been waiting, expecting, and inviting it for years. I used to dream about what it would be like to close my eyes and never have to open them again. I longed for the peace that I was sure death would bring. I wanted to end my constant pain. And now, in this strange, unfamiliar bathroom, I can taste death. Suddenly, I am afraid. Panic comes over me, and my heart is beating fast. Then it gets quiet, very quiet. My head stops pounding, my heart slows, and there's a moment of clarity. I am going to die by myself, and no one is going to notice that I am gone. I could disappear from the face of the earth, and no one would know. In that place, between here and the afterlife, when the anger falls away, I realize how alone I am and how much of life I have missed. I am 21 years old, and I had planned on being so much more. I wanted to graduate from high school and go to college on a swimming scholarship. I wanted to study psychology, write a book, find a life, and be happy. I wanted to make my parents proud. I wanted to be someone and make a real difference in the world. I wanted to have an extraordinary life. There are so many things that I want to say to my family, but it's too late. A grip tightens around my neck, and my breath becomes very shallow. My head hits the floor, and with a deep ache in my heart and a terrible regret in my soul, I close my eyes to die. My mom will be so sad that it ended this way.
Mom. It has been a good day. I am feeling hopeful, happy, and strong once again. It's been 3 years since Kristina left home, choosing drugs instead of help. And finally we are recovering from that terrible loss. My 2 younger daughters are smiling and laughing again. My son has graduated from college and has gone on to be very successful in his life. And I am healing from a painful divorce. We are moving on. We miss Kristina terribly, but our lives are so much more peaceful without her. I never thought I would say such a thing about my own daughter, but her addiction had been totally disruptive for all of us. And life is better with her out of the house. We have just finished dinner, and I am washing the dishes when I'm overcome with a feeling of darkness that I have never known before. A mother can sense her children living and dying. I know Kristina's heart is slowing, and I am seized by tightness in my chest. I loved her deeply, and my heart aches for her. She does not deserve to die. I pray for her to go peacefully. It will all be over soon. She will be able to rest. I will be able to rest. God, please keep her safe.
2. Something so right. Kristina. The dinner party was in full swing. All the guests had arrived. The food had been served, and music and cigar smoke filled the air. Our 2-story house was large. On the main floor, where the party was happening, there was a living room, 4 bedrooms, and 3 bathrooms. The hallways were laid out with shiny hardwood, and my brother and sisters and I would spend hours sliding the length of the hall with our socks on. The main floor kitchen and family room were my favorite rooms. The kitchen was wide open, with wood cabinets lining the high walls, Mexican tile floors, and a fireplace that heated the whole side of the house in winter. The family room had 3 glass walls, and standing in the middle of the carpeted floor, I sometimes felt like I could see forever. Our house was in Half Moon Bay, 25 minutes from the great city of San Francisco, and a 10-minute car ride to the Pacific Ocean. It sat on top of a hill, so on a clear night, we could see the town lit up below us. My parents had turned the downstairs floor into an apartment, and my brother Tyler, who is 2 years older than me and in high school, got to move in as soon as the remodeling was finished. It was a cool place to hang out, and I was really jealous that he got to be down in the new room. But my parents said that since Tyler was the oldest, it made sense for him to be there. They always seemed to make exceptions for him. He was allowed to do so many more things than I was, and Dad would say that it was because he was older and a boy, and that it was different with girls. I would feel so frustrated and invisible, but we were taught not to argue with our parents. The front room of the downstairs apartment was a second family room with surround sound and a TV. My dad had hung a buck's head over the mantel of the huge brick fireplace, and I never understood how he could have shot such an animal, or why he wanted to hang it like a trophy. It seemed violent to me, but I never questioned my father out loud. My parents also had remodeled the small downstairs kitchen. Mom said she needed the second oven for the holidays and for parties like this. The refrigerator was always full of sodas and all the extras that wouldn't fit in the upstairs kitchen. There was a wet bar there, too, stocked with all kinds of liquor and juices. My dad drank every night, and my mom had her wine, but all these bottles here were for parties only. Tonight, I was sitting downstairs on the white leather couch, and I could hear my parents and their friends laughing and moving about upstairs in the large dining room. The voices were muffled, but I could tell the guests were drinking and having a good time. My middle sister, Allison, was at a slumber party. She always had some place to go. She played all sorts of sports, had a ton of friends, and stayed out of the house as much as possible. She was tall and very thin, with the blondest hair of anyone I had ever seen. Her eyes were a deep blue, and her skin was clear and tanned in the summer. I loved her, but I was mean to her. I didn't want to be mean, but she followed me around and always wanted to sit in my room. My mom said I should feel complimented that my middle sister wanted to be close to me, but I couldn't help feeling annoyed. I was the oldest daughter, and although I didn't believe my mom, I did hope that one day Allison and I could be close. Tyler was out at a party this Saturday night. He was really popular, polite, and well-mannered, and whatever he lacked in study habits, he made up for in looks. All my friends were in love with him. Sometimes I thought that the only reason they wanted to come over to my house was to sneak a peek at my older brother. He was always nice to me, though, and he took his job as the older brother very seriously. Every boy in town knew that the Grant girls had a big brother to get through. My youngest sister, Caroline, was asleep in her room. She was the cutest 5-year-old in the neighborhood. She was like a doll, with chubby cheeks, blue eyes, and blonde hair that grew in with curls. I really loved her, and took care of her as much as I could. She slept through the party, sucking her fingers and cuddling her satin blanket. My father liked the dinner parties because he could show off his beautiful home, his beautiful wife, and his well-behaved children. He was a self-made man, very intense and driven, and a heavy drinker. He was handsome, too, with an angular face and eyes so blue they could sting if he stared at you too long. There was always a cigar in his mouth, which seemed to go with his Texas drawl. He had come to California from Texas, where he was born and raised, with nothing in his pocket but $300, a flask of whiskey, and a beautiful young bride. Over 15 years he had built a small company that sold construction materials to contractors. When I asked my dad what he did for a living, he'd tell me that he was simply a salesman and was great at selling just about anything. My dad had come a long way, and he'd done well for himself and his family. We had everything we could ever need or want. My mom didn't believe she should work outside the home, so she was with us every morning and every afternoon. She worked very hard around the house, mopping and cleaning on her hands and knees. When my dad finally hired a cleaning woman to come once a week, Mom would still clean before the cleaning lady arrived. She said it was part of her job to clean our home. During the day, after her housework, she'd go to the tennis club and play a few matches with her friends, have lunch, and be home in time to meet us after school. Mom had frosty blonde hair that highlighted her hazel eyes, and her perfect smile complemented her clear skin. Even though she'd had 4 children, her body was as slender as a teenager's. My friends would always say how lucky I was to have such wonderful parents. I was alone downstairs during the party. I'm not sure how long I'd been waiting for this opportunity, but the excitement in my stomach grew until I almost got sick. I wanted to taste alcohol and feel it moving through my body. My parents had warned me, the church had forbidden me, but it didn't matter. I was ready. The liquor cabinet was in the downstairs living room. The whole bottom shelf slid out so the back could be reached easily. I opened the cabinet slowly. There were so many bottles, and they tapped gently against each other as the shelf came to a stop. I chose the vodka bottle closest to the back and poured a little into one of the bar glasses. I lifted the glass to my mouth and slowly let the liquor slide over my tongue. My head was full of conflict. I knew right from wrong, but I told myself it would only be this one time, and no one would ever know. My mom and dad, God and the church, my friends, I wondered what they would say. My mouth stung and my throat burned, but as the alcohol filled my belly, I was overcome with a sense of relief. It was wonderful. It was a combination of pain and pleasure that I had never before experienced. All the fears in my head dulled as the warmth in my stomach grew. I felt incredible. Nothing was ever the same after that night. I had found the secret to life. I had found a place where I felt strong, beautiful, and smart. I had found a place where pain could no longer touch me. I didn't think anyone had noticed the change in me. I still went to school with my uniform ironed, my nails clean, and my hair brushed. I completed my homework and never talked back to my parents. I still went to swim practice every day to train and to chase my dream of becoming a world-class swimmer. My family and I had dinner together every night, and every Sunday we all piled into the Mercedes and drove to church. We prayed as a family, and after church my siblings and I would eat donuts and play in the parking lot while my parents caught up on church news. Everyone always said what a beautiful family we were. We were all blonde, with tanned skin and varying shades of blue-green eyes. We wore our Swedish heritage well. None of this changed after that first drink, and I was certain that no one knew how different the alcohol made me feel. Increasingly, the desire to drink grew strong in me. In a family of 6, I was not sure when I would be alone long enough to sneak it in. I had to find a way.
Mom. I remember that night very well. We hosted a dinner party for my husband Reed and his partner to celebrate their largest sale ever. My husband was a hard worker. He was up before the sun rose and came home at 7 or 7:30 every night. He was very good at what he did and had come a long way over the years. I had spent most of the day preparing for the party. I had marinated the steak for close to 24 hours, following a family recipe that dated way back to my roots. This recipe took effort, but I wanted to serve the best. I loved to cook for my family and friends, because it seemed to me that we spent most of our time together in the kitchen around the table, eating, talking, and sharing. I enjoyed so much about my home. I loved our yellow ranch-style house on the hilltop that overlooked our town and the ocean. From our glass-walled family room, we could see for miles in several directions. I loved to sit on the deck waiting for the kids to come home from school and letting the aroma of our citrus trees fill me with peace and calm. Our little cocker spaniel, Buddy, would pull oranges from the trees, and the kids would play with him, throwing those broken oranges down the long driveway for Buddy to fetch. We lived right next door to some of our very closest friends, Sophie and Spencer, whom Reed and I had met years ago at our children's playgroup. I remember the night when Sophie called to tell me that the property next door to theirs was going on the market. Reed bought it the next day, and we moved in a month later. Sophie and I and the kids spent many hot summer days around our pool, eating popsicles and drinking cold lemonade. We'd sit for hours talking to each other and watching the kids play. And then around 5 in the afternoon, we'd each head into our own homes to prepare dinner for our families. And some nights we would pool resources, fix hot dogs, and sit by the pool until dark. The kids would play and laugh, and life seemed perfect. I loved those summer days. But mostly, I loved being a mom. I graduated from college, but had always known that I only wanted to be a mom. For the most part, we had created a happy life together. But occasionally the phone would ring, and Reed would be calling to say that he wouldn't be home for dinner. I'd know he was on a binge, and I'd be so angry. Angry at him for drinking, and angry at myself for being powerless to stop him. I would pace the floor, tremble, and pray that he would not kill himself or someone else. Relief came only when he would pull in the driveway at 3 or 4 in the morning. After those calls, when I knew he was out drinking, I'd be anxious and frustrated, and I'd know the kids felt the uneasiness in the air because they would become unruly. Somehow I had to fix dinner, help with homework, clean the kitchen, and handle all the nighttime issues alone. I had not gotten married to be a single parent, and I was furious that my husband was off drinking. One of the kids would push me to my limit, and under the pressure, I would crack. I'd grab a wooden spoon to paddle my children into submission. But all 4 of them would squeal in horror and scatter like bugs in different directions. They looked so funny running away that I couldn't help laughing, and then they'd all laugh too and come out from hiding. On the night of the party, Tyler and Allison were out of the house. Caroline was sound asleep. Kristina's friends seemed to be busy this Saturday, so she stayed downstairs while I took care of last-minute party details. I didn't worry about her spending time alone, as she seemed to enjoy being by herself. The party was a success. We ate well and drank well. My husband and his partner did get drunk, but because it was a celebration, we all thought it was okay and amusing. In a way, it gave me a good feeling to see Reed happy and carefree for that one night. I went downstairs to get some dessert wine from the liquor cabinet, and I noticed Kristina was acting a little funny. But I was busy and wrapped up in the party, so I didn't dwell on it. Looking back, I remember that she didn't look me in the eye when I spoke to her. She kept her eyes down, and the smile on her lips was odd and a little scary. I felt a queasiness in my stomach, but at that time in my life, I didn't know how to listen to my gut. I wish I had listened.
Kristina. My bedroom was at the far end of the house, and I loved coming home from school and closing my door to be alone. I would sit in the middle of the floor, spread my books out, and do my homework until Mom called us for dinner. My favorite day of the week was Tuesday, when the cleaning lady would come. My room smelled so clean when I got home from school. My antique desk and pine bookshelves would be dusted, and each thing carefully put back in its exact spot. Sometimes I wished that the maid's dark-skinned hands could clean the insides of me. I wondered what it would be like to feel bleached, the specks of dirt deep inside me dusted away. My walls were relatively bare. I never hung posters or pictures, but did hang some of my most important trophies and ribbons from my swimming events. I loved to write in my journals, but I didn't share my writing with anyone. I was embarrassed by my deep feelings and was sure no one would understand that my heart was so heavy. My room was dark, and the house was very quiet at 1 a.m. I could hear my heart pounding right beneath my chest. I sat up in bed and tried to silence my racing thoughts. I was scared. There were many reasons not to go through with my plan, but the anticipation drove all doubt away. My desire to drink was so much greater than my fear. Slowly I slipped out of bed, trying not to make a sound, but the antique bed frame creaked and moaned until my feet touched the floor. My parents' room was right next to mine, so I waited for a moment to see if they'd heard. Earlier that day, I had chosen my darkest clothes to wear and hidden them under my covers. I was nervous that my mom would feel them when she sat on my bed to say goodnight. She never noticed. I put them on and moved cautiously to my closet. I reached inside, and at the very far right corner, underneath a wet towel, lay a perfect bottle of vodka. I had taken it from my parents' liquor supply, from the very back of the sliding cabinet, because I figured it would be some time before they realized it was missing. My window was already cracked open. I loved the way the fresh air felt when I was in my warm bed, so my parents never thought it was odd that I had the window open on this night, or any night that followed. I slid the window all the way up and unlatched the screen. There was a shingled roof from the storage shed that pressed up against the house right outside my room and just below the window. I reached out the window, placed the bottle on the roof, and followed with one foot and then the other. Standing there, I experienced a rush of freedom that I will never forget. My heart was still racing and my knees were weak. I made my way to solid ground, grabbed the bottle, and began to walk down the long driveway. The security sensor lights went on, and I nearly had a heart attack. After that, I learned very quickly how to avoid them. At the end of the drive, just outside the gate, there was a hollow, ivy-lined, cave-like space I knew well. Allison and I and the neighbor girls would play in it for hours. We'd pretend we were Charlie's Angels, and that this secret cave was our headquarters, where, after saving the world from near destruction, we would wait for our next assignment. I could almost stand completely upright in the cave, but more importantly, I could sit and relax in the soft bushes. No one could see inside because the ivy was so thick. My father knew the cave was there, but only because it was a landscape nuisance. "It's too small to use and too big to fill," he would say. Other than my dad, Allison, and the neighbor girls, no one knew it was there. I felt as though it was mine. I found a comfortable place to sit, leaned back into the ivy, and took the top off the bottle. The burn was familiar, and the warmth was welcomed. I took a deep breath and exhaled. I felt comforted and very brave. In those bushes, at the end of the drive, I had found relief. Here I was alive and free of all the weight I felt in that house. I crawled back in my window before either the sun or my father rose. I lay in bed and waited for the alarm. The buzzing sound came quickly, and I got up, showered, and dressed. My mom was making French toast as I went into the kitchen in my green uniform, my secret hidden deep inside of me. I could not wait to go back to that place with a bottle.
Mom. Kristina, Allison, and Caroline all attended a private girls' school nestled at the foot of 500 acres of rolling hills. The drive to campus was stunning. Pulling through the front gates and winding down the drive, you saw the understated buildings sprawled across a deep green lawn. The sisters moved calmly about the hallways, and I always loved the way they smiled at the students in their uniforms. I felt close to God on that campus, and I was proud that my daughters were now a part of this century-old institution. The education was tough, and the girls had to be studious. I think Kristina really liked the way she could fade into the sea of green and go relatively unnoticed. There were no boys and no free dress, so the girls could focus on other things besides popularity and clothes, dates and music. Kristina did very well in school. She was amazingly self-motivated, almost driven. She was very involved in swimming and showed a talent from the first day of practice. She also was shy, quiet, reserved, and more sensitive than any of the other children. In some ways, she was very naive and not into all the normal things girls her age were. She didn't like boys or loud music, and instead of feeling proud of her changing body, she hid behind her clothes. She was a beautiful girl, and because of that, she got a lot of attention that she wasn't ready for. Somehow, even though she attended a private girls' school, boys still seemed to find her. One morning, I watched from my car while Kristina was waiting for the school bus. A couple of public school boys walked up to Kristina and her friends. I could tell, even from that distance, that she was uncomfortable, but somehow incapable of moving away from them. This morning she looked kind of paralyzed, and at the same time mesmerized by the attention she was receiving. There was something else to deal with. No question, Kristina was changing. It started with her attitude. I'd try to talk to her, and she'd become very annoyed, angry, and short with me. She'd answer in single words and shut the door very quickly as I left her room. It became obvious that there was a problem when Kristina was picked up at 3 a.m. in the 8th grade for being drunk in a public place. When the police called and said they had our daughter down at the station, I told the officer he must be mistaken because my daughter was in her room asleep. He suggested I take a closer look. Beneath her covers, I found a towel arranged in the position of a sleeping child. Reed and I went to the police station. I was so angry, scared, and confused. I didn't understand what was happening, and my daughter somehow made it out to be my fault. She told me I was too strict, our family too rigid, school too hard. She said that she just needed to let loose and it had gotten out of hand. And if I hadn't been so hard on her, she wouldn't have had to drink. She was so good at turning things around that I actually left the police station questioning myself. I continued to question myself for years to come. It was one of the things she used to her advantage. My self-doubt helped fuel her addiction.
3. Swimming. Kristina. The warmth of the morning.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?